and thank you so much. I truly appreciate you all taking the time to come out for this briefing on the Scranton School District Recovery Plan. I'd like to take a few moments to thank the members of the school board. We have Mr. Mark McAndrew, Mr. Tom Schuster, we have Mr. Tom Borthwick, we have Mr. Greg Popple, we have Mrs. Barbara Dixon, we have Mr. Bob Lesh, anybody I miss from the school board. We have Dr. Kirian, thank you for attending, and Mr. Pat Laffey, thank you for attending. Missy McTiernan from the central office, thank you for attending, and thank you, Honorable Marty Flynn, thank you for attending. I appreciate it very much. We have some incoming board members. I see Ro Hume, thank you for coming. Sarah Cruz, I know, is here. Okay, anyone else here? Oh, Catherine Fox, thank you for coming. And we have entering now, Katie Gilmartin. Katie, thank you for coming. And we have our solicitor, Mr. John Audi. I think Senator Blake, did you just arrive? Thank you. And Kyle Mullins, thank you for coming. I was just getting to them. Thank you, Rosemary, for attending today, wherever you are in this audience. Oh, thank you, you're right there. Thank you. And I think Luann is here from the Maintenance Union. I believe I saw her. We have many principals, and I thank you for coming today. This will be a briefing. I will be holding detailed meetings all next week to go through the 216-page document. But today you will get a flavor of what is in that document. And this is actually per Act 141. The rollout must be held in this way. I must hold a public meeting to unveil the plan. With me today, and this would not be possible without my team. And my team is here. I have Dean Kaplan and Ian Tyson. They're both here. They have been my right and left hand, and this document wouldn't exist without them. They actually arrived in your district about 3 years ago. I think 2.5, 3 years ago, to work on gathering data because of the conditions your district was in. But let me begin by telling you a little bit about myself so you know where I'm coming to with the approach to this recovery plan. I began my love for education when I was 7 years old. I would go home from school, run home from school, and teach my dolls and my stuffed animals everything I learned in school that day. And I was one of those students when I was in middle school and high school, they called it junior high when I was there, that I would love homework on the weekends because I loved doing homework on Friday and Saturday nights. I was one of those students. I think my love for education began with my love for my teachers. And I think great schools exist because of great teachers. And great teachers need great facilities. And great teachers need great leaders. And great teachers need great parents. And great teachers need a great school system. And when I was asked about this particular position and interviewed, I really didn't know what it was about. I didn't. It was a snowy day in the winter, and I said, yeah, okay, I'll come and I'll interview. I really didn't know it was about Scranton School District because through the years, I have kept track of what you've done in Scranton. I grew up in Honesdale, Pennsylvania, moved to Milford, Pennsylvania, spent my 32 years of my 40-year career in Milford, Pennsylvania, working as a principal, director of elementary education, assistant superintendent, and superintendent. Spent almost 15 years as superintendent. When I began my career as superintendent, my school district was 18% of its budget went to debt service. We did not have a penny to spare. We were growing after 9/11. They were flocking over the border. I had to build 27 buildings, renovations, additions, and I had to squeeze every penny to make the budget work. My guarantee to my board, I will retire when I can bring that 18% down to zero, because we need every dollar to provide for great programs for our children. I did that. And when I was asked about this job, I thought, how hard could that be? I'll do it. Okay. Well, I arrived in February, and I realized you have a fairly large debt that has grown over time because you haven't been able to balance your budgets. And when you borrow for operational expenses, that doesn't go away. It just adds to the debt, and the next year you don't have enough money again, and it adds to the debt and adds to the debt. And that's where we are today. So with that backdrop, and with PFM, the state has loaned you a number of experts to come into this district. They've been here since about 2017, and they've been helping with things like special education, federal programs, transportation, business offices. They've been analyzing data since then. I came in February, and I was fortunate to be linked with Dean and Ian, and we started to look at operations. We started to look at academic programs. We looked at certainly transportation. That's been in your news. So what I'm here to do today is to give you a briefing, a summary of the 216-page document. At the end, I will hold a press conference to answer any specific questions that the press has. The electronic version has been sent out right as we started this plan, and we have a few copies for the incoming board members and the board members and the advisory committee, and I was remiss in not thanking the advisory committee. Many of the people are here today, and I thank you for your work. We do have an advisory committee meeting next week on Wednesday, and I'll go through this plan page by page. So let me begin with that backdrop. As you know, early in 2019, I just told you that I was appointed as the Chief Recovery Officer. Many events over a number of years contributed to the ongoing financial challenges facing the Scranton School District. The district had a going concern note in its financial statements since 2014 and had to borrow money to fund current obligations in 4 of the last 6 years. The district was placed under financial watch by the Department of Education in June of 2017 and began receiving technical assistance to address deficiencies. Investigations undertaken by the Commonwealth's Auditor General and Attorney General have raised questions about the district's operations, management, and finances. The recovery plan outlines a multi-year strategy to create a structurally balanced budget now and in the future. It improves key operational areas such as transportation and invests funds in academic programs and buildings. Balancing the budget. The Scranton School District has faced significant deficits during the budget planning process for at least the past 6 years. The table shows the significant decisions taken to fill the annual budget gaps. Because many of these actions only provided one-time savings, the district is expected to continue to have difficulties producing a structurally balanced budget in the future. Permanent budget changes are needed to reach long-term structural balance. If you look at the budget year in the chart, you can see the steps that have been taken. School boards have done courageous actions, have done what they've had to do to pay the bills, balance a budget. But as you notice, if you go down the list, raise real estate taxes in 2014, used $2.9 million in transfers from capital funds. 2015, raised real estate taxes, refunded debt for current year savings, retirement incentive was offered. In 2016, raised real estate taxes, refunded debt for current year savings, used $4 million in fund balance. 2017, refunded debt for current year savings, retirement incentive offered, used $3.3 million in transfers from the healthcare trust fund, used $4 million in fund balance. 2018, note how many more dollars we have to keep using to fill that, to make a structural balanced budget. Raised real estate taxes, refunded debt for current year savings, received a $2 million empowerment grant, furloughed 51 teaching positions, eliminated 16 clerical and maintenance positions through contract negotiations, used $3.3 million in transfers from the healthcare trust fund, and used $6.6 million in fund balance. 2019, raised real estate taxes, received $6 million supplemental ready-to-learn block grant, used $1.8 million in transfers from debt service. Folks, there's no more money in those funds to transfer. That's why we're here where we are today. Let me tell you a little bit about the plan so you know what the next steps are. While I was here, beginning in February, I met with district administrators, union leaders, key stakeholders in the community, including members of the advisory board, local experts, peers, residents, including a number of parents, as required by Act 141, excuse me, which governs the financial recovery process. That I am required, along with my team, to develop a recovery plan for review by the school board, which we are doing today. It has to be posted on the website. We've posted it. Copies will be provided, as I mentioned at the end of the briefing this morning. Within 30 days of receiving the plan, the school board is required to hold a public vote to either approve or reject the recovery plan. Between now and then, they and I will spend time going through every page of that document so it's clearly understood. If the plan is approved, it is then sent to the Secretary of Education. If he approves, then the Chief Recovery Officer will work as a partner with the district to implement the initiatives outlined in the plan. If the plan is rejected, then the Secretary will petition Lackawanna County Court of Common Pleas to appoint a receiver to implement the plan. There are some models of that throughout the state if you're at all interested. Once the recovery plan is adopted by the board, it will become the guiding document outlining actions to improve efficiencies and to stabilize the district's finances. Over time, the recovery plan can be amended by the Chief Recovery Officer and the board to reflect new information and the district's progress on achieving its plan's goals. The recovery plan is based and built on 4 guiding principles that are intended to direct the path to academic improvement and financial stability. These 4 guiding principles are: every student in the district can be successful and must be equipped with the skills necessary for success in the 21st century workplace. Modern business and academic systems and accurate data and reports are essential to making high-quality, effective decisions. Operations and spending must conform to the available resources on a sustainable, long-term basis. Accountability to the academic and financial goals in this recovery plan is the responsibility of every member of the Scranton School District. These principles were used to develop each of the initiatives included in the plan. The plan will require the district to make tough decisions in allocating its limited resources, but it will guide improvements in many of the district's operations, management practices, and oversight mechanisms. The recovery plan is divided into 11 chapters that cover all aspects of the district, and you can see what those chapters are. There are a number of initiatives associated with each of those chapters, and you can see them. In total, over a 5-year period, we have 100 initiatives that we have to complete to be successful in this particular recovery plan. And you could see there's a heavy emphasis on academic achievement, special education, all the systems that we talked about, business office, procurement, human resources, student transportation, capital planning and facilities management, revenue, workforce, all of those are detailed in the plan. The recovery plan includes 3 scenarios to highlight the district's financial condition under different assumptions for revenues and expenditures. There's a baseline projection, there are fundamental initiatives, and there's a framework for salary increases. Under all projection scenarios, the district is expected to produce an annual balanced budget without borrowing for operating costs as it has in the past. The baseline projection is made on a status quo basis, assuming the district only makes necessary investments in its curriculum and facilities. Given the magnitude and complexity of the financial challenges facing the district, the baseline projection is an important reference point for planning and decision-making. Under both the baseline projection and the fundamental initiatives scenarios presented here, no salary increases are provided for the full 5-year period. A framework to generate additional resources to provide necessary salary increases to retain employees and invest in the plan's priorities will be discussed later in the presentation. Let's look at the adjusted budget for 2019. All of the projection scenarios start with this budget, 2019, with several adjustments to account for changes since its adoption. The charts below show the major categories of revenues and expenditures. Local sources, as you know, every public school in Pennsylvania is funded in 3 ways: local revenues, state revenues, and federal revenues. Generally, federal revenues are a very small percentage of a district's revenue stream. Local and state vary based on the type of community, needs of the community. There are formulas that dictate that. The local revenues are dictated by your assessed valuation of your properties, because in a commonwealth, we use property taxes for funding schools. In this particular school district, 42% of your revenues comes from local sources, while state sources provide almost 52%. Employee salaries and benefits make up nearly 72% of the district's spending. And I will tell you, I teach school finance at a graduate level, and I always say 68 to 72% of a budget goes for salaries and benefits, and you're right in that ballpark. If you look at the graphs, look at the general fund revenues. Current and delinquent real estate taxes make up for 27%. You have an EIT here called an earned income tax. That allocation is 7%. You have Act 511 taxes, they make up 5%. There's other local sources that make up 3%. Basic education funding is 27%. Special education funding, 4%. The Ready to Learn block grant was 6%. Retirement benefits and reimbursement, 12%. You do get some of that PISA money back from the state. And other federal sources, 4%. I told you that's very small. And other state sources, 4%. They're usually in the form of grants. If you look at general fund expenditures, salaries make up 41%, group insurance 13%, PISAs and Social Security 17%, but remember there's a little bit of money that comes back to the district from that PISAs. Charter school tuition 4%, other tuition and educational services 4%, purchase services 4%, transportation 3%, supplies 2%, but if you notice the orange little piece of the pie is 11% for the debt service. Anytime you get over into a double-digit percentage of your budget going to debt service, it's dangerous territory. You need that money to operate schools on an annual basis. So that's what the 2019 adjusted budget for the Scranton School District. That's the allocation of the funds. So our major baseline revenue assumptions are these. We're making the assumption that assessed value declines based on historical trends and no increases in real estate taxes. This community, my understanding is the last time it assessed the county assessed was 1968. So a lot of the older homes are still based on that 1968 assessment, and a lot of that's like 51 years ago. That's a long time. You also have a number of nonprofits that are growing in this community. While they do a lot of good for the community, they don't. They most likely qualify under Purely Public Charity Act, and that grants them non-taxable status. So 36% of your properties in this community are non-taxable, which is really very hard for a district when you need to get more revenues from your local sources. The baseline revenue assumptions, the growth for other local taxes, we base those on historical trends. Borrowing to close annual deficits is removed from the 2019 budget and subsequent years. Prior year deficit borrowing must still be repaid, so we can't add to that borrowing. And one-time revenues are removed after 2019, such as grants, debt service fund transfers, and delinquent taxes. The state sources, our assumptions are basic education and special education funding are adjusted based on the Commonwealth's adopted 2019-20 budget. They're grown using the district's share of formula-based funding, and it assumes annual increases in formula funding. Portion of the 2019-20 $6 million supplemental Ready to Learn block grant is used to balance the 2019 calendar year budget. Reimbursement for Social Security and PSERS based on changes in salaries and projected PSERS rates are published by the Commonwealth. Those are the assumptions we used for the state sources of revenue. The federal sources and food service transfer, we held those flat. We don't expect any changes in that. Baseline expenditure assumptions. Charter school tuition. Again, based on historical trends, we have about 30 students, 20 regular ed students, and 10 special education students that choose to go to charter schools or cyber charter schools on an annual basis. The tuition rates are recalculated each year based on the PDE 363 formula. We have an expenditure assumption for curriculum and textbooks, about $300,000 per year, growing at inflation to fund recovery plan priority investments. Debt service, approximately $55.6 million in new capital borrowing split between 2020 and 2022 to address critical capital needs identified in the facility study back in 2014. There was a facility study, and it was noted that we needed about $145 million worth of capital improvements in our buildings here at Scranton School District. We can't afford $145 million, but we were able to work into these baseline assumptions, $55 million that will take care of leaky roofs, HVAC systems, some of the more critical and urgent needs for the health and welfare and safety of our staff and students. Other non-personal expenditures, inflation rate for all non-personnel related expenditures are based on the CPI, and the salaries proposed amounts in the 2019 budget are used as the base. No salary increases are included in the baseline projections. Staffing levels, social work positions supported by the Moses Taylor Grant are removed after 2019, and no other changes in headcount are made in the baseline. While there are a number of positions still open, those are still left in this baseline projection. I direct your attention to this chart. The chart shows the baseline projection using the assumptions I just described. It's a status quo projection, assuming no corrective action is taken. If this board says we don't want to do anything, here's what the future looks like for Scranton School District. There's an annual shortfall of $4.8 million next year, and it grows to $10.4 million by 2024. there's a negative fund balance, reaches nearly 40 million in 2024. If it's hard to see, and I apologize for those of you in the back, just direct your attention to the third line, which is, if it's in red, it's not good. It's not a healthy budget for this district. It needs to be in black. But you can see how it grows over time. And this is if we do nothing, if we don't take any corrective action. That's the future of the Scranton School District. So what do? Well, we looked, examined, talked to hundreds of people, and came up with fundamental initiatives. They are required in order to meet the goals set forth in the district's improvement. You see, my task is to not just improve academics in this district, it's to get this district to solvency. And what does that mean? So you can have a healthy fund balance, so you can do the things that you need to do and not worry about whether you can afford to pay your bills or pay salaries. We need to move in that direction. So the fundamental initiatives are shown on the following slide. They're crucial, absolutely crucial, to provide a path to financial stability for the district. Many of the initiatives included in this plan will require difficult decisions to balance all the district's priorities with its limited resources. And those decisions will be made by school board. I don't make those decisions, I help you in that process. Although the district's finances will improve over the long term when all the fundamental initiatives are implemented, the district will continue to face significant financial challenges in the next several budget years, even with the combined impact of all the initiatives. As mentioned previously in the presentation, the scenario with the fundamental initiatives does not include salary increases for the full 5-year projection. Additional changes beyond the fundamental initiatives must be implemented to maintain a balanced budget and to provide for salary increases. So what are those fundamental initiatives? Here they are. The first initiative, something none of you want to hear. Increase real estate taxes annually to the Act 1 index. Right now that's at 3.4%. That brings this district $1.6 million in additional revenue every year. Implement all required transportation initiatives. Reduce the number of vehicle routes, 6 per vendor. You can see it's an approximate savings of $130,000 in 2019, and it grows to $500,000 by 2021. Rebid Red Top contract in January of 2020, and rebid the Naples contract in 2022 or earlier. $40,000 in 2020, it grows to $400,000 in 2023. And we're going to improve route efficiencies to increase transportation subsidy. The total impact of that begins with $130,000 in 2019 and it grows to $1.4 million by 2024. We are currently in the process of examining the routes, the route efficiencies, the number of buses, and we're in that process. So that is ongoing as we speak right now. Reconfigure buildings for operational and capital savings. I mentioned that we have $145 million worth of capital needs, and that's in 2014 estimates. It's already 2019, so it will be and has grown over that time. We have availability of space in buildings in this district. We have a number of buildings that are in urgent need of a lot of care and capital improvements. So if we reconfigure buildings for operational and capital savings, you can see we would have savings from staff reductions. That would be a number of things that we would look at. Savings from building utilities and any leasing, because we currently lease some buildings. General fund savings from reduced capital borrowing. And we would estimate a potential increase of needing to bus students. So we've put that in there. But if you look at the total impact, there would be a net of 70,000 and generating a savings of 1.1 million by 2024. But we would not have to do those capital improvements on those buildings. What buildings they are, there are some examples in our plan. They will be examined. The decision for looking at those buildings will have to occur during this school year to look at space availability, to look at whether or not we have enough spaces for our special needs populations from one school to another. All of that has to take place in real time. So what those buildings are, there are some samples. We overall need to save about $7 million in capital and some of the costs that you mentioned here. And that's in our plan. We'd like to expand the district cyber school program and not have students leave the district to go to charter schools or cyber charter schools, so we're not paying those fees to those places. We'd like them to stay with Scranton School District. And there's some initial savings. By 2024, it would be $580,000. We need to increase our Medicaid access revenue. That will help offset some of our extraordinary costs with our special needs population, and we're hoping that that will generate an additional $300,000 starting in 2020. And then rebid energy contracts for savings. We're looking at $230,000 savings in 2021 and grown at inflationary rates from there. Those are the required initiatives to make this plan look like this. Now, if you look at the chart and the table, you will see the financial impacts of those initiatives. The fundamental initiatives reduce the annual long-term shortfalls, and you can see there are a couple years, 2022 and 2024, where it's in the black now and not all red. Those numbers have been reduced. We had a $40 million ending fund balance in 2024. If we did nothing, it's now brought down to $3.6 million. You can see that those numbers of net operating results range from 2.5 million, 2.5. We have a positive in 2022, a little bit of a negative of 132,000 in 2023, and then we have a larger positive in 2024, 1.45 million. I again just tell you that's from adopting those fundamental initiatives. But again, there's no salary increases in here, just to reiterate that. What does it mean for taxpayers? What is that, raising it to the Act 1 index? How much does that mean to a median assessed value home in this district? The table shows what that means. It means in 2020, it would be an annual increase of $45. In 2021, 47, you can see it goes up. 2022, 48, 2023, 50, and 2024, $52. Under the recovery plan, each year, the district will determine how much revenue is required to produce a balanced budget. We may get a windfall. Wouldn't that be wonderful? If we did, we wouldn't have to do some of these. We would recalculate everything. If the revenue growth or cost savings, and that's the other piece of this, we have to get cost savings, are greater than expected, then the annual tax rate may increase at a rate lower than what we did in our plan. So how do we get to structural balance? Even without salary increases, the baseline projection shows significant deficits in each year, and the plan scenario with the fundamental initiatives has narrowly balanced annual results beginning 3 years from now in 2022. In order to ensure long-term stability, the district must go beyond simple balance and generate positive net results to create a fund balance for working capital and contingencies. The recovery plan does not assume any extraordinary increases in aid from the Commonwealth beyond historical growth and major subsidies. Therefore, stabilizing the district's finances will require difficult decisions and significant changes from current ways of spending. The revenues or cost savings from all of the plan initiatives are necessary steps that will provide sustainable revenue sources to support programs and to avoid the need to borrow for annual operating costs. Folks, there's no simple or quick solutions that will resolve all of the district's challenges, and avoiding action can compound the difficulty of decisions in future years. How do we get to affordable salary increases? Under all of the recovery plan scenarios, the district will have to have limited options to provide salary increases without additional revenue or cost savings. The baseline projection and fundamental initiative scenarios are unlikely to generate enough resources to return to historical levels of salary increases and create a reasonable fund balance for the district. In order to attract and retain high-quality staff, the district will need to identify additional revenues and cost savings to be able to afford the costs of salary increases. Investments in staff will need to be considered along with all the priorities of the district in order to meet the academic and financial goals of the plan. In order to guide this process, the plan outlines a framework to allocate these resources until the district returns to financial stability. For the duration of the recovery plan, the district will need to focus its efforts on identifying sustainable sources of revenue for recurring costs like salaries and benefits, and use extraordinary one-time funds in part to fund one-time needs, such as fund balance and capital investment and reinvestment. The plan identifies savings beyond the plan initiatives, workforce savings, and Act 1 increase exceptions as potential salary increase funding sources. Assessing progress. The recovery plan includes academic goals to improve student achievement, as well as financial and operational goals to improve the management of the district. The Scranton School District will remain in financial recovery until the Department of Education terminates the district's status. In the recovery plan, the exit criteria are established as the standards that the Secretary of Education will review in making that determination. Periodically, I, as the CRO, will provide updates to the department on the district's progress toward meeting the academic and financial goals of the plan. In addition, the plan will be amended as needed to reflect significant changes in the district's progress and to put in place strategies to address any new challenges. As you can see, we have already posted the entire plan on the Scranton School District website. I am available, and I will schedule separate meetings, whole group meetings. I will be covering this plan page by page with anyone who would like to review this plan. We have copies for the school board members and for the advisory committee, and for the incoming school board members, we have copies for you. If you wish to go on this website, you will see it immediately. I will take questions from the school board, if you have any questions. Yes, Tom. Yeah, I think Mr. Schuster is asking what receivership looks like, and I might go to Dean and Ian for any help that I might have on this. I do know that there are 3 districts in Pennsylvania that have gone into receivership: Chester Upland, Duquesne, and Harrisburg, correct? Receivership means, and maybe you can help me out here, Dean. He's been involved longer than I.
Under receivership, the Secretary of Education petitions the Commonwealth, the Lackawanna County Court of Common Pleas to appoint a receiver. The Secretary normally nominates somebody. The court has the ability to approve that person or appoint somebody else. And the receiver acts effectively as the elected school board. The only power the school board continues to serve in an advisory capacity and is responsible legally for raising any taxes each year, but otherwise all of the board decisions are made by the receiver. And the terms of the plan are then managed by the receiver going forward.
Thank you. Correct. That's correct. Thank you. Thank you. If anyone would like to meet with me, please come up and, yes, sure.
How does the state PD expect our school board to make these tough decisions when our local tax effort is the highest in the state? So how is that fair to the Scranton School District and the Scranton taxpayers when the state isn't kicking in what it should and is telling us to manage our money better when you're not giving us the money that we deserve?
Sure, sure. This is a tough thing for this community. This school board has been very active, as our senators and representatives have been active, trying to get you more fair funding, get more money. It's been identified that you're being not fairly funded from the state. I represent the Department of Education. I work for them. As you know, the legislature allocates funds, and that's all under the governor's office. I think the challenge is, and it's everywhere, there are a number of issues and school districts in the same condition that you're in or equal to. Because of a commonwealth, we go back to, I think, King George, we were appointed as a commonwealth, and the value of property was deemed to be wealth back in those days. And we as a commonwealth still tax property to get money for services, and public schools are one of those services. I can't, and I think I was here 1 minute when I said I don't come with bags of money for this district. I don't have access to that. What I do have access for is experts that I can bring in at the state's cost. Many of them have been working as teams in this district for 3 years now, and you haven't paid for those services. So there are services. I will have access to things like curriculum audits, special education audits, some experts that will come in and assist this district at no cost to the district. That is what the state will give us, but to give you and for me to help modify the funding formula, I have no power to do that. Excuse me, I have no power to do that, but I'm hoping that the advocacy that has been initiated by people in this area will continue. You're very, we have a lot of poverty in this area, and with poverty brings a lot of needs to our buildings and for our programs. And so we do need those funds, and we need to be fairly funded. I will continue to help in any way to help look for those additional funds. But until we get there, we have to look for cost savings. We have to, 1 year goes by very quickly. And I think my caution for the school board and future school boards, it's really not about us here today. Our future is what we've made it now. It's about the children that sit in those classrooms. It's about those children who are sitting in kindergarten and first grade and second grade. What's their future? They deserve this same kind of educational program that you were afforded when you came through the halls of Scranton or the halls of wherever you graduated from. So it's not an easy task. I'm not going to make it easy. I'm not going to tell you it's easy. I said that again the first minute I was here. But I believe that everybody in this community cares about children. And I believe that everybody wants the best for their children. I want to give it all. I want better programs. I want higher test scores. I want a better graduation rate. I know it can happen. I've seen it. I've done it in districts. I know that that can make a difference. What I need you to do is help support your school board to say they're tough decisions. They're not political decisions. They're for the children. They have to be for the children, and it has to be about the future. You know, Thomas Jefferson was a huge proponent of public education, and he believed, and I believe this sincerely, that public education is the cornerstone of our democracy. And if you don't think our democracy is at risk, just watch the TV for a couple nights. It is. And I believe we need to strengthen our public schools. And if it means that we have to tighten our belt a little, we'll tighten our belt a little. There are no furloughs in this plan. There are no gigantic furloughs. I don't bring that to you because I believe we need all hands on deck to accomplish this plan. Along the way, if we see that we have some programs or we need to make changes, there may be, but that is not what's in this plan. Outsourcing is not what's in this plan. What's in this plan is to support those who support our children here today and in the future. And I think we need a cooperative effort. To do nothing, you saw what that does. It puts this district in a terrible position. I think your children, those little faces in kindergarten and first grade and all those classrooms I visited, which were delightful, and I saw children learning, they deserve your support of a very difficult path forward, but a doable path forward. In the business world, we say what gets measured gets done. And this plan has measurements and timelines and people responsible and tasks that will walk through month by month for the next 5 years. I guarantee you, if you follow this path, you will get to solvency. You will get to sustainability. You will have money in fund balance accounts. You will have money in capital reserve accounts for when that boiler breaks or the HVAC system goes down or a major roof leak occurs. You'll have money. You won't have to go out and borrow. So that's what this plan does. I invite you to read it. It might not be the most exciting novel you ever read, but it does have a lot of data in it. It's data driven. And that's how we will get to where we need to be in Scranton School District. I thank you for your, oh yes, Kyle.
There was a concern early on about the closure of facilities in our neighborhood schools.
Mm-hmm.
There was a brief mention in your presentation about facilities generally.
Yes.
I just wondered if you could expand upon that, having obviously not had the opportunity to read the 200 some odd page report yet. Just wondered if you could expand on that because I know that was something of great concern to parents and teachers and educators.
Absolutely. I will expand on it. You have a number of schools, as you know, a number of neighborhood elementary schools, 3 intermediate schools, and 2 high schools. Adjustments are already being made this year to move students from Scranton High School to West Scranton High School to balance, I believe, the populations in those buildings. You've made adjustments such as that throughout the years to balance populations based on neighborhoods, etc. What we will be examining is those neighborhood schools and which ones are most have more needs, capital expenditure needs, and have the ability, and we will look at, and that's why we're doing all the transportation routing and making it electronic so we can push a button and use some scenarios. What if we move this group of students to this building? What will that do? So we're in the process of completing that process now. The buildings that we've looked at are things that probably makes some sense to people. Whittier Annex is one that we are leasing, and we're looking at how we can move some of those students so we don't have to pay the leasing on that. We looked at McNichols Plaza. It's a large open space building, has a lot of capital needs. We looked at that as a potential. We looked at, I think, Sumner and Adams as some examples. We also are leasing Electric City Academy, we have some other programs at like Monticello. All of those programs, while not specifically identified, they are identified in the plan as how much we are paying for them, what they're used for, the available capacity, and do we have that available capacity somewhere else? One of our challenges is we have a little over a 20% population of special needs students, and we have to examine those special needs students as to where the better programs and where they should be placed. Right now, that's not decided. When I talked about those buildings that I just mentioned, it was to give us a baseline to look at as how many dollars we need to save. We need to save about $7 million over time by doing that. And that means we have to sell those facilities also. Did you want to add something, Dee?
Yes, thank you. So right now, obviously people have a great allegiance to their local schools, and for good reason. Right now, the district's occupancy rate, depending on how you count it, leaves about 20 to 25% available space across all of the buildings. In a perfect world where we had unlimited money, we would renovate all the buildings and leave them as they are, because we know that there's quite a strong interest in people being with their existing neighborhood schools. But given the financial challenge we have, we needed to determine what was the possible savings so that we can use that money in the most effective way on the education side. So there's really two things we can do. One is to consolidate buildings, and then the second thing is by consolidating buildings, not have to pay the very high capital renovation costs that Dr. Finan mentioned earlier. We have fewer buildings to fix, there'll be less cost for that and more money for education. So what we did in the plan was we said, okay, we think that the right way to do this is to bring together the people in this room and the groups that you represent, parents, students, teachers, administrators, the school board and others, to work through that issue and determine what's the best configuration going forward. In order to calculate the potential savings in the plan, we had a facility study that we conducted over last winter into the spring, and came up with several alternatives to give us an idea of what the potential savings that Dr. Finan mentioned were. However, the plan doesn't say you will close these buildings. The plan says there'll be a community-wide process to talk about how do we reconfigure to be the most efficient possible and drive those savings back into education for kids. And we look forward to that process being something that really you determine.
Thank you very much, Dean. Barbara.
Dr. Finan, with the potential closing of schools, won't that potentially create furloughs of teachers?
It may or it may not, because we're going to have the same number of children, and most of your classes are at the capacity level of your, I would expect savings in administrative staff, more so, just so you know, but I still think the student needs are there. You know, we have some class sizes that we adhere to, and they're pretty full, okay? Mark? Sure. You can use this one if you want.
I just want to thank you, first of all, for all your hard work and effort on this plan. Secondly, I think we need to stress that in the event that fair funding is, we achieve that or get closer to that the plan can be amended. It's not written in stone.
Right. And I think I said that, but I will reiterate that. Thank you, Mark.
Thank you.
That is true. This plan can be amended. If we were to get the funding that we believe we should have through all the advocacy that is happening, this plan can be amended. We could exit this plan if we were to meet the exit criteria, which means financial stability, et cetera. Let me go back to that whole capacity. We have a lot of capacity in our buildings. You're around 10,100 students, and I think you have capacity for almost 13,500 students. So there are capacities in your buildings. Unfortunately, you haven't had a lot of money through the years to keep up the buildings, and many of your buildings are very old and require a lot of capital improvements. But as Dean just mentioned, about this will be an ongoing process that you will make, as we will make together as a team. We will look at everything. Teachers, parents, board members will all be involved in that. We also, in this plan, have other advisory committees mandated. A budget advisory committee, a capital advisory committee. We have a number of committees that we're going to initiate to enhance transparency through this plan. Mr. Popple?
Doctor, I'd just like to piggyback on what Representative Flynn had to say before, and this is about the elephant in the room. We are in this situation, as far as I'm concerned, because historically the state of Pennsylvania has underfunded urban school districts and has underfunded the Scranton School District more so than any other urban school district. We are underfunded thousands of dollars per student. Everybody talks about the students and how wonderful they are, and they are, but they're not being treated wonderfully by the state of Pennsylvania. It is because of the state of Pennsylvania, in my opinion, that we are in this situation. And the state of Pennsylvania, what the state of Pennsylvania is recommending that we do is tax the citizens of this, tax the homeowners of Scranton to the state maximum for the next 5 years. We already tax the property owners of the city of Scranton higher than any other urban school district. We have a higher percentage of revenue coming into the Scranton School District from local tax effort, more so than any other school district. And they want us to increase that. I think it's wrong. I understand that you don't have the power or the authority to address these situations, but somebody does. The governor does, the legislature does, and they're the people that have to step up and fund this district properly and take care of the kids of the city of Scranton the way they should be taken care of. We are taxing the people out of their homes in this city. They're moving away from the city of Scranton, not because they don't like the city, not because they don't like the school district. They can't afford to stay here. Young people aren't going to buy homes in the city of Scranton or build homes in the city of Scranton because of the tax revenue. And to increase that burden is going to have dire consequences for the city of Scranton. And I just think that we're going about this improperly. If the state of Pennsylvania would step up and do what they're supposed to do, we wouldn't be in this situation. And again, I'd like to thank you for your work. I know you did a lot of work, as your team did. And it's just that this, in my opinion, it's the state of Pennsylvania that has to step up. They're the ones that can correct this problem in a short and a long-term basis. Thank you.
Thank you. I think we're really lucky to have legislators here today. I know they heard your passionate plea. They have tried. I was at a hearing last week here. They've tried. They are continuing to try. I think everybody will try to get more money for Scranton. I see them here. They're interested. They want to help. Again, I wish I could write you a check. My first idea was have everybody buy a lottery ticket and commit the money back to the Scranton School District. That's not feasible, I know. The problem is, folks, what if we don't get money? The budget year is over. They're working on a new budget year. What do we do for those children? You saw what happens if we don't do anything. We are going deeper and deeper and deeper in the red. That's not good, okay? I am here, I'm worried about the ability to keep the lights on. I'm worried about your ability to pay your bills on time. I'm worried about you being able to meet payroll. I would love to come here today with a plan that gets everybody all their raises, gets all the buildings fixed, and said, we'll be in Cinderella land. That's not where we are. And I'm sorry, I can't bring you money. What I can do is bring you a path forward. I can bring you a path that if we follow it, you won't have to worry. Your children won't have to worry. We will be at a level where you can sustain it. This did not happen overnight. I began with that statement. It's not going to end overnight. You saw what's been happening from 2014 on. In fact, I was told by Mr. Laffey that he found a note or a list in the business office that this district never had the 8% fund balance that it should have had. Never in its history. And actually, a district your size needs to be higher than 8%. 8% barely covers 1 month of bills in this district. So when I tell you that, there hasn't been a history of setting money aside for those roof issues or those rainy day issues or those contract negotiations or for the increases in PSERS. You know, I'll give you an example. The state sent us, I was a superintendent at the time, the state sent out a list and told us 3 years in advance and gave us the increase in PSERS, gave us a chart for like the next 10, 15 years, what the increase in PSERS was going to be. I received that. I was a superintendent. I went to my board, my business manager, and I said, ooh, we have to start to set money aside. Look at these jumps in PSERS. And I would go to superintendent meetings. I was part of IU20. I would go to superintendent meetings and they will all sit there, oh, we're not worried about that. Are you kidding? The state has to give us money. They're raising it, they have to give us money. And I thought, I'm not waiting for that. I'm going to take some money every year, put it aside in a separate account, so when those big years, that large jump comes in PSERS, I'll have the money in my budget to fund it. And we're not going to worry about PSERS. That's what I did in my district. Little by little, that grew. That fund grew. And we met our PSERS obligations without a big headache. And all of those folks who sat at those meetings who were superintendents like I was are still waiting for the state to come in and give them extra PSERS money. And that chart is still the one that I was handed years ago. I bring you that example because I don't know your political power in Harrisburg, but there are 499 other districts that need other things. Maybe not as much money, but they need other help. And they're not going to just hand over bags of money. I hope that our legislators, and I know they work day and night for your community, I hope they're successful and they can bring you money. We could amend this plan immediately if that happens. Immediately. But until then, the children of this community and the parents of this community deserve better. They deserve a highly trained, high-quality teachers who work hard, and they do work hard every day. They don't know what their future is. I mean, can you imagine sitting here going, oh, I'm not getting a raise for 5 years, oh my goodness. Well, we're going to try our best with some cost savings and some issues that we're going to face together, make some decisions to make some things happen. But that's all part of the planning process.
I appreciate your effort, Ms. Finan, but I have to say, our children are going to suffer. Our teachers, it's not right what we're going to do to them. It's not right what we're doing to our taxpayers, and I'm going to fight. I personally, I'm sure Senator Blake, we didn't know how bad it's become. This is systematic, but it's systematically underfunded. So you can tell us you're going to help us survive on the one sandwich for a month and tell us the best way to eat it, but it's still only one sandwich. We have to survive, and this is not, we're at 82% poverty level. We're gonna be at 100% poverty level because there's gonna be nobody living here.
So what's your answer? What can
My
you add?
answer is, I just want you to tell the governor how bad it is.
Oh.
And I'm gonna go right,
I have.
I'm going right to him this week. And I'm gonna demand that he meets with me and that we go over this because it's unacceptable. We cannot survive like this. We cannot do it.
I have no problem. I was there yesterday, not at the governor's, but I was there in a meeting with other people in the same boat we're in, and we all are in a conundrum. We are. It's a conundrum. I mean, where do we go from here? I understand what you're saying, and I understand and appreciate your passion.
And I thank you for your effort.
Yeah, thanks. Thanks. And to be honest, you know, I'm the first, and I hope you understand. I don't want teachers and administrators and maintenance staff and custodians and clerks and everybody who works there to go without a raise for 5 years. That is not who I am. That is not what I want. Oh my goodness. How do we get there? We have to do it together. I think there are plans in the workforce, there are initiatives in the workforce portion of this plan that will help us get raises. So please don't sit there and say, oh, I have to run away. We need to retain high quality educators in this district. And we have them, we need to keep them here, and we need to give them hope. And I don't want to dampen your spirits. I really don't. Because I'm the first to say, that's who makes the difference. Teachers make the difference in the classroom. That's what makes the difference. It's not the building. We need them safe, we need them secure, we need them healthy environments, but it's the teachers that make the difference. Rosemary.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you, Dr. Finan, for the presentation today. Dean and Ian, thank you for helping so much. And thank you to everybody in this audience, our school board, our citizens, the advisory council, everybody here, and some of my own members of 1147. This is really a tough thing for a union president to swallow, and that's something that I have to do. I agree with you, Marty. I agree with going down and talking with the governor. I have been doing that quite often over the last few years because I knew this day was coming. I'm sad that it is here, but I'm a realist, I think. I think most people who know me know that. I need to be able to have a general membership meeting here within the next few weeks that I've asked Mr. Coyle for this room, and I have to be able to tell the truth to my members. They're going to be coming to work this August, and they're not going to have a pay raise, and this will be year 3. There is no real collective bargaining going on because we had to wait for this plan, and we still have to wait for our school board's decision, and we have to wait for the PDE's decision. I don't believe that anybody in the Republican side of the aisle is going to do anything to help the Scranton School District. I do not have that hope. I do hope that we can all work together to move Scranton forward, and it is hard. It is very difficult. I get it. I live in the city. I own my home here, and I pay my taxes to the city. But please, I need everybody to realize what it's like when we go back to work this fall and all members of my union understand what's happening here. My members are the people in the classrooms and standing in front of classes that are mostly at max. Our numbers are not funny. They're not light numbers. They're tough numbers. Teaching today is teaching today. It's tough. It's not an easy job. It's a difficult job. It's getting more difficult every day. But we do it because we want to do it. I have taken phone calls this week and last week at my office from people in my union who are leaving the Scranton School District to go elsewhere. That is something that happens. I can't fault them for that because some of them said they're getting a $5,000 pay raise by going to another district. That's a lot of money, $5,000 for anybody We all work, everybody in this room works for a reason. We don't go to work every day. My grandfather didn't work in the mines for no reason. My dad didn't work on the railroad for no reason. They worked to sustain their families. I worked to sustain my family. So we have a harsh reality here. It's a pill that I hate to swallow, but it's a pill that we face together. I've got to be truthful with my 900 members. Everybody on the school board has to be truthful with the citizens of the city of Scranton. We have to be truthful with our parents. But don't think for a minute that I don't read the morning newspaper, because I do, and I read that other school districts around us are facing the same challenge. They're furloughing, they're cutting programs, and sooner or later, this is going to be what's the reality in the state of Pennsylvania, and sooner or later, somebody has to get this thing moving. I'm asking everybody in Scranton School District and in the city of Scranton to get a campaign going so that we can alert Harrisburg, not our legislators, they're doing their job, they're working hard for us, but it's the other side of the aisle that has to be notified. They owe it to the students and the children in the state of Pennsylvania to provide for them the best, the very best. They owe them that. Our students don't have to beg. They shouldn't have to ask for help in school. They should have it given to them by right of their birth in the state of Pennsylvania, and in the government from the United States, federal government, we get nothing. Next to nothing, because we have a Secretary of Education in Washington who wants everybody to go into a charter school. Everybody thinks this is the greatest thing on earth. Well, it most certainly is not, because I too believe in the words of Thomas Jefferson, and I too believe that every student, every child in this country deserves the very best we can give them. And that means we have to work hard to maintain the staff we have. We have to work hard to get a staff that is equal to the task of educating students in this country for the 21st century. And now we're going to do it without enough money. We're not getting enough money. So we've got to fight for that. But we don't have to fight what we have to do. We have to do what we have to do to get ourselves back into solvency and on the right track. I'm asking everybody to please work together hard and petition Harrisburg as much as you can. Call them every day, over and over, flood the phones. And by the way, we have a senator in Washington, Senator Casey, who was a staunch advocate. But we also have a senator named Toomey who doesn't know we exist. He actually wanted more money for charters. We have to go after him. We have to get Matt Cartwright to speak up for us. We have to get every representative in Washington to know we exist. So let's hold them accountable for what's going on, and let's unite, not fight against each other. Let's unite and fight what the enemy is. The enemy is the people who don't want to fund public education. We know who they are. They're brazen about it. So let's fight that. We have that power in Scranton, Pennsylvania. Let's use it. Please do what you can to help the schools in Scranton, the teachers in Scranton, all of our workers, all of our staff, and especially the students who don't have a voice. We're their voice. Let's do it. Let's fight together, not in opposition to each other. That doesn't make sense to me. United, we stand. Divided, we'll fall. Let's not do that. Thanks.
Thank you, Rosemary. I just want to add, the whole workforce chapter of this plan has options that will get dollars to teachers and to salaries. And I've spoken with Rosemary Boland before about needing to work together to find common ground so we can help get more dollars. I'm an advocate. I told you why I love education, how I began my career at age 7 teaching, and I continue to think that the difference is made in children in those classrooms every day. And that is who we are here for. And we will work very hard. I will work very hard. You can guarantee that, to get what is fair and what is doable in this plan. I'd like to just end with a quote again from my favorite, Thomas Jefferson, who said, "Above all things, I hope the education of the common people will be attended to. Convinced that on their good sense, we may rely with most security for the preservation of a due degree of liberty." Again, I thank you for coming. I appreciate your attention, and I am always available. If you want to call the district office or send me an email, I will meet with you and go through the plan. So thank you, everybody. Have a great day.